And we start by saying, welcome to the Moo Stew. Scooby-Dooby-Doo. How are you?
I'm good, thank
Hello.
you.
Welcome to the Moo Stew podcast, episode 7. Today we're talking to Kate Cullen, a friend of mine, and who I met 4
4+ years ago.
4+ years ago. I'll start by introducing you for once. When I met Kate first, I was doing a workshop at a wellness festival called Play, which was really interesting back then. And yeah, there was just this super energetic person doing all of the things when everybody else was a bit like, wait, what are we doing here? What's the stick for? So yeah, anyway, and then you came up to myself and Helen, actually, who was expecting Lucy at the time, yeah, so 4 years ago. And you're like, hi, I'm Kate. I'm just come back from New Zealand. Hello.
Love me.
Love me. But yeah, I think the rest, between ourselves anyway, the rest is history. But that's why we're here today, is kind of to tell people a little bit more about yourself. So do that. Tell people a little bit about yourself, and kind of, I suppose, from when I know you, you can tell me you were just come back from New Zealand at the time, so it might be a nice place to start.
Yeah, that's really nice, because even you talking about it flashes me back into a memory of that exact moment. Like, I've often talked about meeting you, but I don't know what it was like to meet me. So for you to be like, oh, this Play thing. And that's a word that I haven't even thought about in a long time, but that I came home with that was super strong. And when I was in New Zealand, I had done loads of things, but most recently had come from a training kind of epiphany world where I hadn't been moving, I hadn't known anything, I didn't have a training age in me at all. And I was introduced to movement and weightlifting and all these things, but under the guise of play. And it effectively changed my life in the way that I thought about many things. And when I got back to Ireland, there was just nothing. Or when I would say to people, do you want to go on a play date? People go, Kate, you can't say that. I'm like, why not? Like, I don't understand. So I remember the Wellfest thing came up, and there were some really huge names at the time. And there was Animal Flow that was in there, that was getting in. And your segment was the last of the day. And it was one of those sub ones. It's like, you can pick one of the main stage ones, and you can pick one of these. And I was like, screw everything else, I want that one. And I remember sitting around for the day, because ultimately I was like super bored with a couple of things. I'm not going to say no offense, because actually there should almost be offense. Like, I was really pissed off with Wellfest. Like, I went into the nutrition tent and turned everything over, and it was sugar, but just different names for it. And it didn't feel organic, it didn't feel right. But I was determined to wait around for years. So when I met it and met you, yeah, I was like, okay, shit, I've arrived. This is exactly what I've been looking for.
Nice.
So yeah, it was amazing.
Cool. It's almost nice for us. I think as a coach, you go to different workshops, and all the good coaches will say, if I come away with one thing, it's been a good workshop for me. And I think in that scenario where I think there was 30 people at that or whatever, and generally be like, sure, look, someone might come to class, but little do you know that you're going to meet somebody who become like an integral part of the studio or whatever, and which you have been. Like, Kate's been a tremendous help of the last year, I'd say, in particular, in an admin side of things, and in I suppose, like essentially a personal assistant for a while when you were kind of in between jobs yourself and all that. And you really gave me a good kind of boost over the last year or so. But it's mad, right? Because you go through a situation where we could have easily said, fuck this, like, it's 30 people. And you could have said, fuck this, I'm going home. I'm not waiting for these unknown people to do the last class of the day or whatever.
Exactly.
But I think it's always nice when you're just like willing to push through and be like, something nice might happen. So you lean in, you expect a bit of magic, and you just go in with enthusiasm, you know, and you make a connection, and hey ho, here we are. Ever since I met you from then, you struck me as quite strong already. So you're quite a strong person, like, you've muscle tone, and you're quite, you know, your presence as well. Like, so you hadn't been training before that? You had, or have you been strong, or where does your strength come from?
No, like, I'm an ox. I've always been a strong, like, my natural set is to be, like, even my muscle density is stronger, whatever nervous system is in me, which also relates in also other ways. Like, I'm always on. Even growing up, there was, like, I wasn't a relaxed child. I was a very, like, hyper aware, ready to go at any odd moment in time. And whether or not that has an effect on how my muscle tonicity was, most likely. But yeah, the way I'm built as well. I've just got big legs, a great glute, and I'm strong in that sense, absolutely.
If I didn't know you, I would assume you meant fiery, but you don't strike me as someone fiery either. You've a different kind of intensity about you.
Intensity is a good word to describe me, I'd say, yeah, for most people.
Equally, doesn't strike me as rage.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't have been so obnoxiously rageous, where you would just know there's Kate, the angry person. But there are times where I can see where my emotions would have churned in a way where I was no longer in control of them.
Okay.
And even like if I have memories of when I was very young and how I expressed that rage, it was things like closing doors really loudly in a bang, or like taking books and like shoving them down. It was like there was an anger inside of me, but I wouldn't say that I'm constantly in rage.
Okay. You're a very bodily person, so hearing you talk about that, like obviously seeing you dance now and stuff, which we'll get to in a while. By the way, we went backwards first, sorry. But yeah, so you always had a relationship with your body where you just express things through your body, whether it's power, whether it's grace, or whatever it may be. Was that since early years, and is the rage and the muscle tone a way of, like, it wasn't harnessed, and how would you express it?
It's a good question to have, because like it's very hard to define. Was I up here or was I down here? Ultimately, of course, I'm going to be both. But in terms of hyper energy that I would have had a lot of times, it would have expressed itself. I fidgeted a lot, like, so I would have lived in my body in that sense, or almost as a channel to like take any nervous energy out of my body. I probably moved quite a lot and did a lot of things, and this is how I express myself. And even now, when I'm trying to talk to you and I'm finding the words but I can't find them, I'm doing this to tell you. So my body tells you first before my mouth, and therefore my brain will.
Were you stopped from moving when you were younger? Or is that why you felt the need to move? Or was it kind of quelled? Or are you just that by nature, just physical? Or was it the only way you could express what you wanted to do? I know what it's like to be hyper as a child and want to move, and I think like a lot of kids do. It's quite natural to want to jump on things and play around and express yourself and wrestle around or whatever it may be. But yeah, what was it for you? Like, were you over the top, always needing to move? Or and so you mentioned like nervous energy or something like that. Is it because there was nerves there, or is it just energy that was there?
A two-part process. So I wouldn't, like, my family were not a family of activity goers. Like, my mum's thing that she does is read. Okay. And if she's not reading, she's just looking after the house. You know, it wasn't, or having tea and scones with her friends. So that was my measure of that. And my dad wasn't active either. He'd go hill walking and stuff, but that was very much an adult activity. So I wasn't even going on that. I also was quite unwell as a child, so I would have been wrapped a little bit and like, you can't go and do that because you're sick. And I actually would have been sick for so many years.
What was wrong?
Well, multiple things, but probably the one with most longevity was I had issues with my kidneys. Okay. So for a good few years, I was just very unwell with my kidneys. I was in,
Okay.
a lot of strife.
Cool.
But yeah, all good now.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. Sweet. And so you've obviously, as you've grown, I think it's part of your story is finding the channel to use the body to express things as well. Like, I think you're quite articulate in general. You don't have any problem having conversations well, but kind of seeing you blossom into.
That's a very learned skill though. It's not natural for me to know what to say, when to say it. Even the micro pauses I give before I give anything out is because there's a learned process where I'm going, the stuff that's up here that can word vomit out of you, that hasn't worked so well for you in the past. So let's try and coddle that around, because a self-acknowledgement is you've got something worth saying, make sure you're saying it in a way that is picked up with that same amount of respect. Okay. So that's a very learned skill. Is that from a social filter or a self-esteem thing of feeling like this is your place to say something, or that you don't want to say the wrong thing, or elaborate a little bit more about that? Well, one, I'm far more introverted than my physical body would let on. Okay. I'm more introverted with myself. So to learn how to present that, noticing that it will come out in that nervousness, as in like, oh, I know it's my turn to speak now, so now it's gonna happen, and it would just flood out of me, or, you know, like I'm a creative mind, and sometimes things would come up and I put things and things together, and I would say something and then people go, huh? And I'm like, oh, that didn't land. And just like over many years. But one, it's definitely a positive, right? But on the flip side, there's another thing that I've realized in recent is that I was also given the space and grew up in a place with not many children. I grew up in a far more adult environment. So my narratives and my vocabulary and the kind of stories that were around me were far more mature. So I'm not saying that what I was saying was weird, but it may have been weird to a 5 and 7 year old.
Okay.
So they reacted like a 5 and 7 year old to what maybe I was saying, like, huh, that doesn't match what I would think. Like, we're talking about pogs. Why are you connecting things that shouldn't be connected? But to me, it made total sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting because we've always spoke to my daughter Lucy, like my daughter Lucy, you know Lucy, for you all.
Yeah.
Like an adult, and no goo goo gaga, no need for it, and they just developed that way or whatever like that. But I think like you're saying, maybe you didn't have so much child company or people that are your age. That's slightly different as well. Then you can be spoken to an adult, but you also need peers or whatever like that. Cool. Let's jump to New Zealand because we said we would. So tell me a little bit more about the kind of space you were in when I met you first, because it seems to be a familiar story where people travel, they learn things, there's relationships, there's magical lands.
So when we first met, I had just come back to Ireland after being almost 5 years away.
Okay.
So I had done the great escape. At one point from Ireland, went to Australia. I can consider that really lucky because I left at a time when the country went into economic downturn. So like I missed a whole heap of like social trauma that happened here. Like I don't have memories of that nor experiences. So I went off to Australia, and then after 2 years there, I went over to New Zealand. A little bit of to and fro about where I was going to live. I ended up in Wellington, and unlike Australia where I would work and move, and it was just this kind of booze cruise around the continent, I started to develop roots, and I had housemates that became friends, that became family, that all of these things. And New Zealand was like a complete flip over for what Australia was, in terms of what I was putting into my body, like no longer drinking the same amount. Coffee was replacing box wine, and outdoor living was replacing late nights in hostel bars.
Cool.
It's also completely contagious, the feel of what the New Zealand people bring, and like they've grown up and they're really similar to us in a way. They're surrounded by nature, and that dictates who they are as a people. They're also very tribal based, which we share as well. Like Irish people are really tribal based, so is this sense of community that was there, and they were very welcoming spirit, similar again to the Irish. They just like would just take you in. If you gave an inch to say I'm interested in being your friend, they're like, get over here, join the party, we're having a barbecue, we're playing outdoor cricket, like this kind of lifestyle. And it just blew my mind. It blew my mind that children were playing rugby at such a young age, and the All Blacks happened to be like my like favorite thing to watch, even before I knew that Ireland had a rugby team. Like they were just another interesting topic if we ever get into them, like the All Blacks in themselves. Holy crap. Seriously, sports psychology, like oh my god. And I remember I was dating a guy at the time, and he had a career in rugby before he tore his ACL, like the unhappy triad or something blew in his knee anyway. And I remember going, cool, when did you start playing rugby? And he was like, yeah, about 5 or 6. I was like, whoa. Tell me, when did you start playing full contact rugby? And he was like, about 5 or 6. And it was just like, what? Yeah. And that was just one instance of that happening to me there. So everything that I knew as normal was given a new avenue to explore and go, hey, there's another way to do stuff, there's other ways to look at things. And that same guy actually happened to be a personal trainer, and he encouraged me to start coming along to classes. And I was totally in fear. I had a full body fear about that, a head fear about that, not because training had that for me, but because at that stage, 7 years previously, I'm losing count of dates, but I'd been in an accident where I had damaged my back and had herniated discs and blah blah blah. Like I put on, like in that state, and not by the time that he had met me, because I'd come off in literally having a diet of wine and noodles in Australia, but I put on 3.5 stone. You know, I was weighty. Like there was a lot of things that had gone on the aftermath of that accident. And the biggest impact of that was the narrative that I held that this is you forever. You're not going to get better. In fact, you're going to get worse. Whatever you do is going to cause you pain. So just stay away. Like, just don't do any of that stuff. And this guy just was like, no, just show up. Like, just come along. And of course, like, we had started to date. So I was like, all right, I don't mind being around you. Like, you know, like, I'll show up a little bit. But what was beautiful is he had seen something in me that I hadn't seen, and he saw the strength of my body.
Cool.
And he was educated massively in ways that I now know, which is so beautiful from learning from everyone I know. It's like he would have seen my body and gone, I see what she's doing there with her pelvis. I see what's happening there with the twist of her shoulder. You know, like all these little tells that he would have known that I wouldn't have any idea about. And yeah, he brought me in and basically tricked me into training by this play aspect. Like there was balloons involved and, you know, like all the kind of animal patterns and stuff. And I'm obsessed with, well, if you're telling me my hand goes there, my hand has to go there because my shoulder has to be there. Like I'm obsessed with these kind of rules and rigidity, even in the flow. And it was class. And I just started to get stronger and I just started to be able to lift more weights and the pain changed. The pain was now no longer...
So you were living in pain then? Like you had constant pain or...?
Oh, for 10 years, I was living in a constant hum of like 4-ish on the level of pain. Not unusual to go into a pain level of 6. And on days if I decided to go and do something different, for a week I'd be in an 8-ish plus.
Okay.
Like, just horror.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it was hard. So really used to that. And then just changed to DOMS instead of like pain and just started to strengthen.
How quick did that switch over happen?
6 weeks, maybe 3 months max.
So do you think it's, I mean, we obviously believe in like biopsychosocial here, so a lot of things are, you know, mind and body and beliefs and a lot of things play a factor. Do you think it was just realizing, oh shit, I can do this again, I'm actually okay? And that the pain may have been fear-based, you know, and once you can eradicate the fear...
Like you said, there's so many layers to it. It's like an onion. I can lift weights or have weight on me was one, but it was also clicking my body back into where it needed to be as a structure, and to understand where my bones sat inside my body and therefore what muscles were causing the issues. And yeah, like even in that, like the headspace of being fearful held me in a traumatic pose, which was exacerbating my pain. So, which would have been this, like, because I had pain in my lower back, what naturally felt like a kind of stretch where you'd almost like put your arse out to look after it, was making it worse. But it felt like I was giving it, like, you know, when someone goes, I've got a tight shoulder, you just shove your like your knuckles in there. Yeah. It was like that's what I was doing, but it was exacerbating it the whole time. So total mix of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Phil Greenfield has this lovely acronym PEMTWR, and it's like persistent excessive muscular tension when at rest. And so like a lot of things can cause people to just have that kind of constant sensation of stress or you know, whether it's through fear or previous experience or whatever. And the moment you get to be like, like just the muscles can relax or whatever like that. And then Gary Ward's one is like, you know, joints act and muscles react. So if we can actually just let yourself be and just do what you're doing, because the muscles just do what they're told, essentially. Really interesting and a really nice way to turn it about. Had you always got that sense of my bones feeling here now and all that? Like, had you always got that kind of vocabulary about your body? Because it sounds like you had already thought about it a lot or felt it a lot or understood it, even though you didn't really as well?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like there was such a before and after that I don't even know what I was thinking before. I feel like after my accident, there was like a pause put on my life where like I feel like I knew who I was and what I was doing and what was going on, or at least getting there. I was a teenager, I was 17.
Okay.
To then this, it's like a blank spot. Like I don't really know. I'm sure I knew some things, but it's very hard for me to articulate now if I knew.
Did you have an aha moment with it, where you woke up one day you're like, fuck, no pain, or?
It was more gradual. Aha moments. It came so much more, like so many things, like this guy, his narrative constantly with us. Our conversations were what would have brought me around, and talking not just about movement, but about, like, I'm a bit of a neuroscience nerd. I like neuropsychology, and we'd always talk about that and the nervous system, and then got into gut health and what that plays as a role in you. So it was more this overarching umbrella of like information that just all started to come together, and like put it together in my mind. It was just like,
Brilliant.
like it's just fell on me like soft rain. Just like, oh. And since then it's just been a continued exploration of just being easy.
Deadly.
You know.
Cool. I think it's cool, and that like everything is connected, and like, you know, it's very easy to just say, oh yeah, of course everything's, but like to actually realize, no, like my gut affects my organs, affects my muscles, affects my mood, affects my whatever it may be, and everything has that impact, and you can't do one thing without there being an impact. So yeah, you being like good relationship, good healthy relationship with your body now, in a lovely space in a country where I believe is your spiritual home.
Yeah.
We're going to lose you to New Zealand one day, but that's amazing, and just realising that it was kind of all of the things that kind of made the difference as well. So continuing with New Zealand then, with your absolute adoration of it, and kind of how the rest of that trip went, because obviously you ended up back here. So
I did, yeah. As in, why did I end up back here?
Yeah, what brought you back here? So
frankly, there's a few reasons, obviously. Like, the first is we're going to go really like pragmatic. It's like visa. I was finished a visa. Working holiday visa was what I had. I got an extension in a holiday visa because I just really wanted to stay just that little bit longer. So that was part one. The other part being that I hadn't been home in a long time. My sister had popped out 2 more kids that I had really not met. Like, I left her with 2, and now I'm coming home to 4.
Okay.
So yeah, I really wanted to spend time there. And also my mom, like, I left as a girl who was
so 17?
No, I left when I was like 24 or whatever.
Okay, sorry.
But like, I'd left as a girl, and I really wanted to come back as like an adult. Like, to speak with her one-on-one like this and be like, Mom, let's have a relationship where I get to tell you all the wonderful things I've learned, and show up as a woman in front of her, which is important.
Cool.
And finally, even though I was being called and asked to stay in New Zealand, especially with the guy I was dating, like, it was a lovely relationship for the time that we had it. But I had gotten into that relationship quite soon after finishing another one, which I'd had for a couple of years. I'd met in Australia. It was a total romantic love story, and it was like, still holds such a beautiful place in my heart. But when I looked back, I hadn't been single or in a place of self since I got my first boyfriend when I was like 16. I think I'd had like a max break of 6 months, and it was just relationship to failed relationship to failed relationship. And I felt in between the last 2, I had made a clear decision of, I'm going to spend some time alone. Okay. And then I met the other guy, and it was kind of like, I kind of just need to stick to my guns. And whether or not that was right, I can now say that ultimately whatever choice you make is going to be the right choice. But it definitely was great to come home for that as well.
Cool. Yeah. I'll just check the camera for 1 second. Our first time. We are good. Cool. So, after all that then, you came back to Ireland. That's where we met. So how has everything been kind of since? So again, 4 years. I know for me it's been like a lot of stuff has happened. A lot. But yeah, how have the last couple of years been for you? I think, yeah, knowing you, it's been like all of us, but like a roller coaster of just this and that and then this and that. And then it seems like over the last year, you've really found your feet with your job and kind of doing what you love doing. Which you've taken steps to do, I think, yourself anyway, and then the opportunity presented itself. So can you elaborate a little bit more about kind of what you do now and how the last few years have been?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, now I'm in just such a great place, and I'm so delighted for that, because it was a very much work in progress and remains one. But like, coming home was really difficult, because you almost come back and you're being asked to fit into a box that you no longer fit inside. You're not even the shape of that box anymore. You're completely different, but to everyone else you look the exact same, and it's really hard to explain to people, and all of these bits and stuff that you've gotten used to having no longer exist in the country you're now returning to. And at some point I had to make the very clear distinction of, well, that stuff isn't there. So instead of being upset and pissed off about it, it's like, okay, just put that stuff to the side and focus on the good stuff that is here, and start developing those, and like both relationships and opportunities and things to do. So that stuff really started to click into my head maybe 2 years ago. So now we're talking 4 years, that's 50% of my time was left looking over my shoulder going, how do I get out of here? Like, and not focusing on all the wonderful things that I had going on around me, determined and stubborn to be like, wow, this is just temporary because I'm going to go back, and not realizing those things. So yeah, once I started turning the eyes the other direction and go, fuck, actually I'm really fortunate and there's loads of things to be grateful for and so many wonderful opportunities around in a multifaceted amount of subjects. Things just started to turn up and show up. And actually, speaking, I'm thinking about it as well, and I made a pretty big decision 2 years ago, and that was I used to smoke a serious amount of pot, loads of weed. Like, it was something I picked up in Australia, didn't do so much of it in New Zealand, but it was a bit different, it was a bit different lifestyle. And I came back and I just kind of kept up the habit. But there's so many things that were different about it here, and my headspace was different, and it affected me really negatively, and I was refusing to look at it as the problem. I refused to acknowledge that was the thing. I had burrowed it into almost a part of me. I was now attaching myself as like, hey man, like, it's just a plant, man. Nerd. Yeah, I know, right? And I had a particularly low moment in time, and I said, you know what, like, you're a smart woman, Kate, like, let's cut this crap. And I just went cold turkey on it. And I would say that's a absolute turn moment from that moment then, to just start looking towards the positive. And that would play a massive part of that.
Cool. It's cool because, again, knowing you, like, I know kind of two Kates, and the Kate that smokes pot is definitely different to the Kate that's in going la 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 la. Like, they're two very distinctly different people as far as I'm concerned and all that. And yeah, I think we know that about each other, and kind of I know which one turns up and which one I prefer. And I mean that in a nice way, obviously, and not judgmental at all. It's just you can separate the two people. But it's amazing. And again, yeah, just acknowledging that as like the stresses we have in life, that generally we find ways to either express it or suppress it and kind of deal with it when we're ready to do it, and that comes out in food and different forms of addiction and whatever it may be for all of us in different ways. Everybody has their voices, but to be able to be on a platform and kind of talk about it is quite cool as well, because then you make it a little bit easier to talk about. When you were kind of smoking too much and all that, from what I can recall, you had difficult enough times well before things were starting to be good. So I think when I met you, it kind of seemed like things kind of up and down, and kind of down times were tough enough or whatever. Or if that's not the case, have you any experience with kind of harder times whether it was anxiety or depression or being repressed or expressing yourself or something like that you could share with us? Just the nature of the podcast is just being able to highlight some form of that stuff.
Goodness, like, which portfolio do you want?
Hey.
No, like, I'd be quite open. It's like, I'm definitely a person of highs and happiness and that kind of area, but with that has come immense lows, and I wouldn't have acknowledged them as being a problem ever. Not a problem, that might be too weighted a word, but I wouldn't have seen them as anything. I wouldn't have been aware and acknowledged them as such. Sorry, what are you asking for?
Your experiences or your perspective on hard times, personal struggles, whether it's an example or whether you can offer somebody something to... Your acknowledgement as well, sorry. You were saying.
Well, like, I see as what I know now that there's two ways of having a low time, and one is like a traumatic event happens and you experience a low as a cause and effect of that. Or another, which is that more like underground river of just things not being so okay. And I more live in the river than I do in the like traumatic event. I don't have an experience.
Okay.
I have experiences, and sometimes the river dips a little lower. Examples would be like my most recent one was the time that I decided to cut out weed, because it wasn't even like my most recent one, like that was the one, like as in for all the things where you're like, I can see that I was down at times in my life, that was the most like hand out, that's a problem statement there. And I knew, and I found out in such the funniest way. Like there was many things that would have built into it, like stuff happening with friends. I was falling out with some friends, there was serious stuff going on there. I didn't really know what my path was or where I was going. Like I felt like I knew what I wanted to do, but something was stopping me going that direction, and I was being stubborn and trying to look for something else. I wasn't financially healthy. I wasn't saving money. I wasn't earning money in the right way. I was stubborn and not going on dole for a long time and living off savings, which is ridiculous. Why didn't I go on the social and then use my savings for something? But alas. So there were like all these combining factors, which were just the perfect storm for what was going on, and then combined with the like extra substance abuse, like where I got really insular in my head, and I'm quite a creative person, so I'm like imaginative, so even any of my dark thoughts became quite imaginative and started putting things together. It was just swirling through it. But the standout moment, because it was like, you can have moments where you go, that is so out of character for me, that I realized that I was in trouble. And it was when I was living, my brother was so great, I can look back now and you see he was giving me an out, like he let me stay in a house he had, and like it was kind of like an agreement, like you just have to keep it clean or something. But I was so low that I think I just used to get up, I think I had popcorn, microwavable popcorn as my food, like stuff like that, because I didn't have money, so it was like that and Cocoa Pops, like stupid stuff. But I was walking down the street and I remember I remember passing a church, and I looked at the church and I went, like, go for a pray. And like, if anyone knows me, that is so not me. And I literally, it was like this like wind came in and like blew out my head, and Kate the eye came in and was like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, what the fuck did you just say? And I was like, whoa. I was like, that really doesn't sound like me. I was like, okay, and like I can laugh about it now, but I immediately, like, I picked up the phone, I got some help, I like started messaging my friends. I was like, one friend in particular, my friend John, and then I was on a train somewhere, and I picked up and I started calling, like, he's like, have you thought about ringing someone? And I rang professional services. Cool. And, you know, got like, there wasn't anything they were able to do, but I picked up the phone and somebody answered, and oh my goodness, the voice of empathy on the other end, like they couldn't do anything. They're like, but Kate, you sure you're all right now? And I was like, of course I'm all right. But for them, they would have heard a voice on the end that was like unfamiliar to me. I wouldn't have realized how down I sounded. And then from there, I reached out to family, got help, and here we are.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
Weird. I never knew you had that big of an issue, and I don't think you did until the moment you realised you did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's weird. It's kind of scary. I said on one of the podcasts this week as well, is like just me even getting a habitual drinking habit where it's a glass of wine every night, or every other night, and then it's every night, and you're like, fuck, like this is a problem. And so I was saying to Vincent like a couple of months ago, because I've basically cut the drinking down. I can drink on Fridays and Saturdays now, and I've stuck with that, and I think we're 2.5 months into that. I was like, grand, it's not even a problem whatsoever. But just to acknowledge it, it's like, dude, like you drink the way I drink, and we're basically like functioning alcoholics.
Yeah.
And it takes that oh shit moment where you're like, that's not cool. You know? So yeah, just kind of copping ourselves on bit by bit, and then like, you realise life is tough. And so yeah, we have those kind of, you get your vices and you're just dealing with stuff, and then you hopefully you work your way out of it and make sense of it. So how has sober Kate been, or weedless Kate been?
Yeah, been great.
Well, it looks great. Like, you know, everything seems to be happening quite nicely. So
thank you so much. Yeah, no, I feel great, and I feel positive, and I feel not more alive, but yeah, more alive as well. Like, you know, I do still get down times, but there's a huge acknowledgement of the spectrum of feelings, and I don't have to always just be happy. There isn't a one and then the other. There's like this myriad of them, and there was an acknowledgement of that in the time as well. It's just like, hey, because I would have been known as like happy Kate, people who go to Kate because she's always the happy fucker over there. And I was like, little do they know at times that I'm happy when you see me because I'm that kind of person with you, and I charge off of your energy. But when you don't see me, I might be that way. Yeah. But yeah, now I take it, and I guess sometimes I get below, but like, hey, who doesn't? Of course. Other than that, I feel more focused. I feel like I know what my path is going, or at least I don't know what the path is. I know an area of where I'm going, and it's happening. So,
yeah, I think definitely it's just like getting a blockage out of the way almost, and then like, again, because I know you, like just seeing you get the job you had, and you were kind of not in a full-time role, or not in a, you basically end up, you were working for like 6 months, was it, in a role, and then you end up getting the full-time gig
Yeah. Like I specialised in contracts for a long time.
Yeah, contracts. That's the word.
That's the one. And then the opportunity came to have a full-time position in the company, and what was really nice is because I'm so adverse to this like locked in feeling. Like I always felt like I needed to have my wings to be able to run away, and I don't use those words by mistake. And it was just like my exit clause, and everything else felt like I'm in. There was also another huge moral side of me that it's like I know how much it costs to invest in hiring someone, and I don't want to go through that process and then in 3 to 6 months end up going, sorry guys, I'm off. So there was both sides of that at play there, but I found a company that I'm like, you know what? It's badass working here. I'm challenged enough every day. I'm given the space and autonomy to do stuff, and just I work with loads of really competent, fantastic people. So I'm just thriving in it. I love it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. And then over the last while, you've kind of spread your wings also, but not to fly away. You stepped into a teaching role basically. So the dancer in you that's kind of itching to move is also someone who's probably more about actually expressing her voice so that other people can learn that they can move as well. It's a side to it that I didn't see up until we did the Ape Escape recently. Is like, you're just trying to bring out of people, like, yeah, do this and just think about this, and if you do that, surely you'll be moving in no time. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of stepping into that space?
Yeah, totally. But it'd be strange because it'll almost be the first time I'll be hearing myself talk about it, because it wasn't a planned activity. Like I think there was always this little pull that I wanted to be doing something with movement and bodies, but less for training the body, is more of giving people that space, which is so beautiful that you saw that. Because there wasn't like a master grand plan, it just started to fall in. It's grown from just me discovering that I could work slowly and surely on getting the things that were in my mind for how my body would move out of it. And back to the start of this conversation, whereas obviously I speak with my body more than I do my words, that's what dance kind of was for me. And I would notice that because of the way I react like that, I like to pick up on physical cues that people give, and sometimes it's really quite natural to see someone like in a natural conversation maybe shirk away or do something, so I'd be hyper aware of those little tells. And often the tells I see are where I see people just holding themselves back just a little. I'm like, just fucking gives a fuck. Like, and if I think that if I can create a space where people give less of a fuck and just move and feel great, and then leave maybe having done something they didn't think that they were going to do before, and just be more centered inside. It's just, it's a win for me to see those people. Like I've seen people coming from the start where they look kind of a bit tight and a bit, I'm not so sure. And by the end, like, mightn't be a smile, but the body is smiling. Like, like waves are happening in hips that were never moving before, and things like that. It's super great. And I've no idea where it's going, but more people keep asking for it. I'm not really even sure what it is I'm doing yet.
Great.
And that's kind of part of the fun learning. And it's very enjoyable. Yeah.
It's so interesting at the Ape Escape because it was like 6 lads.
Yeah.
And just unexpected movements from lads.
I think you did a twerk upside down in a handstand. It was fantastic, and that was great because the session you had arrived to was the evening one. I'd done the one in the morning that was more like internal work, and the evening was more just like, let's just let it out kind of stuff with the tools that we've learned throughout the day. I thought it was very cool. It was very, very cool.
Why is it important to you to give other people that space?
Because it's what I would want. So I'm not going out looking for what everyone else would want and trying to map myself around. I'm like, this is something that I would want, and if I was looking for something, this is what I would love to have received. And it's something that I've learned myself as I've gone along, and sure, there's no purer way of going into teaching than going, hey, I picked this up by myself doing stuff with the help of wonderful people, where I've just gone, I understand, and how can I speed that process up for someone else?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. One of my favourite things that I ever heard was from Tim Ferriss, just in terms of being a business owner, and I think it's why I got the coffee machine originally. He's like, scratch your own itch, because inevitably somebody else will have the same itch. I was like, if you feel like handstands and coffee will be a class that you'd like because you want to have coffee in the morning and have handstands, is probably what I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck, like, scratch your own itch, do it. and lo and behold, it was like, oh, actually, yeah, people do this. So yeah, who doesn't want like to be able to move their body in a room and dance like no one is watching, or dance like everyone is watching, depending
like
on what
everyone is watching, because you look badass right now. Do you know?
I've only been to that one, so do you give technical cues, or do you always try to create a story behind something, as in just set the scene and off you go? Like, you know, versus like, you know, extend your arm and pull away a cloud.
Yeah, no, I don't talk about the cloud stuff. No. Less visual, but it's a complete mixture, because there are people that need cues, and even myself, like I'm not one avenue is going to be the best way to learn, so I'm trying to get a wealth of it, and so my nerdiness about anatomy mightn't be what other people are interested in, but if I talk about it just as a natural conversation, I find that some people are picking it up, where others I'll go and tactile touch them, which is really nice, and something else you guys have done here where they respond more to that. And others you just kind of let go, or they'll watch you and they're very good at doing what you're doing. They're doing a mirroring thing. Yeah. So it's there's less technical, but I would give instructions like, I want you to reach out as far as you can go. And for the nerds in the room, and to appease myself, I'm probably going to talk about as you're stretching and your lats go right down to and whether or not it's of interest then, there's an education process by osmosis happening at some point. And if someone can leave understanding that if I stretch my arm, muscles in my legs are doing something, cool. Yeah.
Sweet. I'll just check the camera while we're on the topic. La 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 la. Grand. Yeah, 28 minutes left, so cool. The storage is dictating. Cool. So Kate the dancer versus Kate the teacher, then. So you have these lovely moments where you're in the middle of town, there's people around, and you're just like, and there's like little noises and lightness and stuff like that. Can you explain a little bit more about your minute-long videos where nobody can hear the music and it's just you? And
yeah, well, like they're born from like listening to music as I'm walking down the street, and like when I hear music, it's a beat drives me, a bass drives me, I feel it, I'm like, oof. And like, it became this almost pain point where I couldn't, or I felt I couldn't, dance when I wanted to dance. Like, well, I'm listening to banging tunes and I just want to, have you ever seen that video online of that like woman at the bus stop, and she's like in a jacket and she's like, somebody will, and they'll know what I'm talking about, because she's just like, someone's recording her out her window, it's fantastic. She like then looks over her shoulder like, was anybody looking?
Nice.
But I don't know, one day I just said, why the fuck not? Why shouldn't I? And I started doing the thing that I normally do before I'm about to do something, which is, it's internal. Then all of a sudden it starts coming out my mouth, and I start telling people, because now it's getting to a place where I'm like, well, I'm having a bit of ownership and accountability. I'm going to tell some safe people, the ones that won't poke the bear about it. And then I'll start maybe half doing it or thinking more about it. And yeah, one day I was just like, this is it. I think it was, I came across like an April 100-day challenge that was like, do something every day for 100 days. And it started, I think my first few videos, you'll see 1 to 13, and then I just stopped because I wasn't doing it every day.
Everybody ever.
I know, right? How's that diet going? And it's so cool. Like, my first video was like dark under a bridge, like, you know, like and I remember like, and they were cool. They were in hidden spaces where I knew nobody was. And I also remember the feeling of doing it the first time when there was people around, and it was just this constant step up into fear. Like, as in, this is not terrifying. Nothing terrible will happen to me. So it's these like micro fear steps where just constantly going. And secondly, the responses to them have been something that I could never have experienced or predicted. Because just like the dance or becoming a teacher, when you're doing stuff from authenticity and therefore not doing it for anyone else's sake, you get responses from people who genuinely like what you're doing. So I went into this for me, and as a self-development piece for me, and to see what I could get out of it, and it's turned into something that I couldn't even have put together, and it's only in its beginnings, really. If I keep going, this is only in its beginnings, which is really sweet. People like it.
It's one of the best lessons to learn, is just like, do your thing, because you never know who you're influencing positively, and especially if it's not contrived, if it's authentic and it's your voice, whatever, it doesn't matter, because people can resonate with that. It's such a primal thing. You see someone doing something that's honest and authentic, and however it looks, everybody can respect that because everybody knows what the fear is like. And you know, the people who be like, that's shit, are the people who are like, I'm afraid to do it.
Yeah. And I challenge that as well. I'm like, oh yeah, give it a go, so. I'm like, not out of a attacking way. So I'm like, I hear you, buddy. Do you want to give it a go? Sure, I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
Like, do you know? And it's like, it's not your thing. I'm not going to challenge somebody totally, like, let you away with a little bit. Like,
it's just where the magic happens, isn't it? Where the butterflies are is just where the magic happens. Something I want to chat about. So you had an Instagram post a while ago where you were talking about the women's place or women's influence in the industry. Let's say the industry, it could be dance, it could be fitness, it could be movement, it could be whatever it may be. And essentially, part men not shouting out women as influences, and partly women just in general not getting the recognition they deserve as influencers or inspirations or whatever. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because we never actually end up talking about it. Can you elaborate a little bit more about your feelings on it? Maybe what you meant about the post originally, or just your general feelings on it? Because we want to kind of highlight that as well with the podcast, is just female influences and just that. It's kind of, how are things going in terms of equality and, actual factual equality?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because naturally what happens is like I put something out there that was myself and more my thoughts of the day, and responses or reflections will dictate what I'm going to speak of from now, because it's just the natural ways of things. I hear what people would say back and I go, nice, I wouldn't have really considered it that way, and thank you for sharing that with me. But it was really driven from a place of being like, I've been training myself amongst amazing people for a number of years now, and I'm finding that the only places that I can look for amazing things are these male-dominated areas. And they're, like if I'm looking at who are benefiting or who developing strongly out of business and brand through the guise of social media, because there's plenty of other ways to have a business, but in terms of the ones that are really visible, it's like, it's these groups of guys, and young, strong guys, and like, I'm so delighted for them. I think it's amazing. So there's a huge part of me that super supports it. But there was this other part of me that I just couldn't stop seeing, that it just continued to be these groups and packs. And don't get me wrong, there's loads of nuances to this, as in, men together, women together, like they're strong, and they're, built into our DNA from other things, which are still really valuable to have in terms of talking circles and stuff like that, and where you feel most safe and who knows you the same. But in terms of opportunity, I was just seeing a really big blind spot, or what I felt was a really big blind spot.
Okay.
And being very aware that it's really natural. It's really, really supernatural when you have gotten yourself to a place and of success, and I say that loose because there's many defining factors of that, and you see somebody who's interested in doing what you're doing, and you recognize not just them, but what you're recognizing is a version of yourself, your older self in them. So it's a really natural bias. It's really built in us to go and help that person and open doors for that person, because you're like, hey, if that was me back then, I see you and I want to help you, because what you're doing is you're seeing you. You're seeing past you who could have done with a leg up. So I find it like a really natural space, but it doesn't mean it's not worth highlighting. I felt it was at a point where I'm like, do you know what? I think I need to start highlighting this, because it's now becoming, I'm a little bit bothered by it. I'm noticing it. Oh God, now I'm focusing on it. I notice it a lot.
Do you think that only happens male to male, or what was the... I mean, we've female coaches here and stuff, and most of the members here are female as well. I'm only speaking about this place because this is my place, whatever. My place is their place. But yeah, so like I find it hard to... I mean, since then and the conversations I've had, I'm always making sure that I'm consciously thinking about it, because if it doesn't come consciously, then that's the point I need to kind of check, because like, okay, well, maybe there's something there. And so now I have to consciously, I'm in that stage of learning where I have to make sure to remind myself, am I just checking in with the women, checking in, like, whatever it is, making sure it crosses my mind every single time. And that's not to completely flip a bias if there was one, but just to acknowledge, well, I better live this long enough to know if I was part of that or whatever it may be. But yeah, from what I can see, obviously we're huge supporters of people. I'm not even say women or men, because it's just people, female staff here and all that. So yeah, it's hard for me, because I look at just the mum and babies classes and women who are doing tremendous stuff. taking influence from Y7 Yoga in New York, like, you know, owned by a woman, Soul Cycle had gone huge, and that's spearheaded by a woman who sold their ownership, I think, in it. So I see female influence everywhere as well, and even like Sev trained here and stuff, like the place has powerful, strong, artistic people here. So when it came out, I struggled to identify with what exactly he meant by it, because like when I see someone like Kat on a Saturday morning, I'm like, Jesus, how does she move that way?
But it's amazing because you are, and why I associate and live around this place is because you are part of a world where I feel very privileged to be in that space, where I am around men who lift everyone, never mind your gender. There is something that's worth highlighting though that has come off the back in terms of a reflection piece, which is really interesting. It's like, you know, I challenged myself after that and I was like, am I looking at women or am I only looking at men? Like, it was another thing for me to acknowledge, like, hey, so since then I've started finding more women that I'm interested in following and questioned, was I in a place of influence? I, before that, would not have considered myself in one and considered myself just an observer. But then I was like, actually, do you know what? I could be someone that somebody's looking at that I could highlight and identify for. And so that is worth mentioning, that I had to be very clear on what my focus was. Was I only looking in a particular pool and seeing, was I biased and getting back what I only wanted to see?
Okay.
So that was worth acknowledging. But I still do think that it is something that is worth to keep in top of mind. Like people I did, like those guys I did talk to, and they're like, well, the response became, well, it's not my fault that I don't have a female influencer. Do you want me just to make up one or something? I'm like, God, no. I don't want you to replace or to put in place simply because it is a woman. But if there is none, fine. But can you have a look around and see that in 15 years, that you were part of the people that held doors open, where now, you know, I don't know, Dylan, who's 10, is now when he's 20 going to be like, bang, and I was watching that chick, man, and she totally inspired me. Because if it wasn't happening for us, like as society moves, they're the kind of changes and the minute changes. And I also am very aware that I have been someone who, even at the start we talked about this, like struggle for voice. That came from a struggle of growing up not being respected as a female voice. Okay. It's not just about my voice, that I won't really go into it just based on respect for certain people that are involved, but that there was a shushing. There was a this. So these are also things that I'm carrying here and here that are obviously going to influence me. But I'm aware the intricacies, as you are, which is so beautiful to be here, but the intricacies of how people express themselves, about how they tell their story. And it's very easy to see the people that are loud about it, and they mightn't be loud in voice, but loud. And then there's these other people that if you are aware enough and take the time to look around and see the quality that exists in someone, but they're just like, I just don't really feel the need to say it. And then you go and have this little sidebar chat with them, and you realize, like, whoa, you could be teaching me so much, or you could be teaching in a way that I never considered possible before. And we're all following a system right now. We're following a pattern. And hey, like, okay, I don't get it right yet, but like maybe there's something. And
I love that. I love that because I'm an observer by nature, and it's my job to see potential. I feel like it's my job to see potential in people and be like, hey, cool, look, do this.
Next week you'll have that chin. I've heard you do it, and
but even noticing you on a Saturday, just taking the space to help someone do a handstand, like, just that, like, Kate's a teacher now. She's just proved that she's taking the space, like, you know, and that's kind of around the time all this happened as well. But it's also interesting because this podcast was born out of me feeling like everybody I meet, because I meet a lot of people through here, is my superior, and not just in one way, but in many ways. And so having that mindset is just like, I'm so willing to have any conversation or to observe, and like I said, the person who's the quiet person in the room was like, oh, I'm sure we'll get a chance to chat at some stage before or after some class, and just like, what do you work out, what do you do, and all these little things. You find out the coolest little things like about people. And so I think it's true, because I wouldn't say if it wasn't, but everybody has something, at least one thing to teach us, which is so cool. I'm gonna check this phone because there's limited memory. There is, we're going to go like 30 minutes left. Cool. So I think that's, I think it's super necessary.
To follow that, like, and maybe to echo what you're saying, like, everybody has something fantastic and wonderful about them if you give the moment to look.
Yeah.
It's just, people are magic.
Yeah.
They're just magic.
Well, they really are. The end. No, they are, and it's again just I really am passionate about this being a space where just like you'll see some random people that you would never have seen before, and they're just talking about their story and the things we can learn about them. I think Kanye West was a huge inspiration for this. Off one thing he said at his, I think it was in his VH1 Storytellers thing, which would have been 10-12 years ago probably, and the short version is basically like if two people got into a lift and one was a homeless person and one was an executive at Facebook or Google or whatever, if they talked in the elevator instead of looking down, it's like, what would he learn? What would he learn?
Yeah.
And you know, if Mary, who drives a 5 Series Beamer, got in the lift, and Johnny, who's 10 years old down the road, you know, they got in the lift together, and you know, if they talked, what would he learn? What would she learn? And I know Kanye can be quite divisive, polarizing, but super poignant as just like that's simply it. If we weren't so judgmental about people like, oh, homeless person, and just putting that person in a box in a bracket, like, no, homeless person has a story.
Yes.
Homeless person absolutely has a story. And Mr., you know, in the big blue suit, whatever like that, like, he has a story also. And we also have layers and, you know, our own shells and our own, just everything. And so, yeah, I just think just that, like, if I talk to you and you talk to me, what do I learn, what do you learn? And if we can share that message, what do they learn? And just keep that going, because that's what life is about. I think it's about connection and relationships and all that sort of stuff as well. So, is there anything you'd like to add or talk about that we haven't talked about?
God, probably.
Okay.
But
if you were to offer one piece of advice to every single person you met, so regardless of what type of person walked through that door, age 10, age 70, big, small, shy, whatever it is, if you could give them something or offer something or recommend a book or something, what would be that thing?
Oh God, there's so many. Can I have two? Or only one? Okay, two. My first is that I'm gonna give you a hug.
Cool. Good choice.
And it's so much more than the physical act. Like, it's about letting that person know that I see you, I acknowledge you, I'm embracing your presence. It's not just this. I find a hug so powerful for that, and like, it's like a moment of time where I get to cut out everything else, and now you are all that matter to me. So, and like, for people to feel seen, that is really important. And the second thing that I would tell anyone is that it's okay not to feel okay.
Cool.
It's absolutely okay to feel not okay.
Sweet. What does the next 2 years look like for you?
2 years looks like similar to what I'm doing now, but I expect far more growth. I'm in no rush for anything, because I feel very confident about the path that I'm on. I'm really enjoying the stage of learning I'm at in my new role, and I look forward to the wealth of learnings and opportunities that will bring for me. I am loving Dublin, and that is so wonderful to say, and to say with truth. I love my bike that I cycle through it, and I look forward to just understanding it more and being around my people more. Somebody asked me, what do you do with your spare time? And my first thing was, you know, handstands and coffee, essentially, or spending time with people I care about. And like, these are the things I plan to just keep doing, just keep enjoying the bits I'm at, and keep just that one step ahead into where I'm going, and not push, not force, easy. So yeah, very much similar, but I imagine a wealth of difference as well.
Cool. Yeah. Do we lose you to New Zealand at some stage?
Not just yet.
Not just yet. Answer the question.
Oh fuck, I love that place so fucking much.
Well, I would like to thank you for being a hugely pivotal part in the last year of us kind of moving into the rebrand and stuff like that. It was, yeah, I've said it to you before, like, it was super important. Definitely needed it as well, so thank you very much. And the last 4 years as well, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
If you've nothing else to say, I do not have anything else to say.
I have nothing else to say that would be appropriate for every year.
Okay.
I tend to be
cool.
Filthy.
Thank you very much. Hug it out.
Yes.
Cheers, my dear. Oh, love it. Microphone. Cheers.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.